An important authoring skill that any Viewlet author should have is a basic understanding of timeline editing. As you can see here, this project was created using Smart Capture, and here's slide 2 selected, and this timeline may look a little bit daunting, but it's actually fairly easy to work with. Now, if you don't see the timeline tab in View, go up to the View menu, select Tabs, and then select Timeline. Now let's take a look at the timeline here. This shows that we're on slide 2 of 6. This is timing information for this particular project and slide. We also have the main slide time right here. This slide will display for currently 5.7 seconds. We can increase the slide time or decrease it. This is one way to do it. We can also increase the viewing of the timeline itself or decrease it as needed. And we can swap between looking at the timeline on a slide per slide basis, or we can go ahead and view the entire timeline and navigate through our slides that way directly while we're working along the timeline. I'm going to switch back to the slide view so we're looking at individual slides. Over here we have our layers. These are the layers that make up the objects that comprise our slide. This is an expanded view. Click that, I can collapse the view and I can expand it again as needed. And then again, remember this is a Smart Capture project, so there's going to be a minimum of 3 background frames per slide. It's critical to understand what's happening here, especially if you have multiple background frames on a slide, because as the slide plays back, here's the first image. At about 4.5 seconds, my image is going to change. So if I add elements on the slide in addition to this, I want to make sure that the background makes sense as it plays back. So it's animating the background as it goes along as well. Then we have the balloon layer. This balloon's going to come in at 1/2 second. It's linked by a timing link to the cursor path. The cursor will start moving at about 2 seconds for this amount of time as it takes it from getting to here to here. Then we have, when it's done traveling, it's linked to the image to load the second image. Here's a blue diamond that will then play a cursor click sound as the last background frame loads. Now, if you're looking at a timeline and you don't understand what's going on here, simply play back the slide and pay attention to where the playhead is as it plays the slide itself, and it'll give you an idea of what you're looking at here. Now, something else to keep in mind while you're working along the timeline. Okay, you have all of these tools and indicators and such as well here, but we need to know what mode we're in while we're working along the timeline. What I mean by that is, for example, right now we're looking at all of the layers dumped onto the slide in one view. However, we know that all of these particular layers don't display at the same time. They come in at different intervals along the timeline here. So we're in what's called slide select mode. If, however, I want to see something how the viewer is going to view something at a specific interval on playback, I can switch to what's called time select mode, simply clicking along a tick mark here, maybe 3 seconds, and then I will see in what I call real time what will be seen on playback here. Okay, I can also drag the playhead while I'm in time select mode to do a manual scrubbing of the timeline to see how things will play back. Additionally, time select mode is very, very handy for inserting objects on the slide at specific intervals along the slide. So for example, if you're using a video capture slide and you're 3 minutes into it and you want to put something at the 3-minute mark or whatever, get your playhead set exactly where you want it, and then for this example, we'll do it for 3 seconds and then pop in whatever you want. Here we popped in a note, could be a zoom zone, whatever, and it'll put it right at the 3-second mark. If you don't do that and you insert something on the slide, most of the times it's going to set it back at the beginning of the slide and then you'd have to drag it along. So just an authoring tip there. Now again, we are only going to be doing timeline editing here, so let's go ahead and actually walk through all the slides, look at the timeline, and do some editing and see how quickly we can do this. So slide 1, it's set for 1 second. If I wanted to increase the time again, I could do it using the up-down arrows. I can also drag the title box back and forth as needed. Okay, I'm going to keep it set to 1 second, so that looks good. We have the second slide. Here maybe I want to go ahead and move the starting position of the cursor. Now watch what happens. This is a common authoring mistake. As I let go, it shortened the time, of course, for the cursor to travel to its ending position from its starting position. But because there's a timing link involved, it also pulled the balloon starting position further along the timeline. So if I wasn't paying attention to the timeline, I would have what I call dead air for almost a little under 2 seconds, but I wouldn't know why. However, because I know by looking at the timeline I see what's going on, I can easily fix this by dragging the starting position of the balloon back to a half a second. And since I have timing links here, everything updates and pulls along as well. So everything looks good there. I'm going to go to slide 3. Again, just glancing at this, everything looks good for display purposes. Go to slide 4 again. Everything looks good here. Keeping in mind we're focusing just on timeline editing. Slide 5, everything looks good here. Okay, I glanced up here. I don't like where the balloon is. I'm going to go ahead and just drag it. I'm not doing any text editing or anything. I'm just moving the position of the balloon on the slide. But you notice it didn't affect anything on the timeline, so we're still good there. Then I go to my last slide. I have a cursor here. Maybe I want to delete that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But you notice how now I only have this slide set for 0 seconds, so it won't even show on playback. And if I have more slides after it, since this is only the demo portion, you're not even going to see the slide. So I want to set it to a minimum of 1 second. And of course I want to save. And that's basically all there is to it. So again, keeping in mind that understanding the timeline at first may be daunting, it's fairly easy once you get used to it and can really sharpen your authoring skills. If you have any questions on this topics or any others while working in your Viewlet projects, please visit us online at www.carbon.com. And again, thank you for your time and happy Viewletting.